Okay. So the first thing that I just posted on, not Canvas, all the things to keep track of now, D2L, is a due date calendar. And it is a Google Doc, so it's subject to change. But it's already got the entire semester in here. So you see when your posts are due, all the due dates are in bold. It's got when all your posts are due, when your quizzes are due, posts, like your discussion posts. When I am releasing each text. So for instance, today, you'll get the Carter text, and then Friday, your post about Carter is due. So I think this is the only time maybe that there's one in like 1 week, but it just makes sense with the way that the rest of the calendar is. What subjects you're getting grammar about, and then when all of your quizzes are due and when they're coming out. Once you actually get essays, like you'll get your first essay assignment on the 19th, and it'll be due 2 weeks later. But it's got all of the info. It even got February in there, even though it ends like 2 days into February. How weird is it that semester 1 is not ending until February?
What?
Makes me feel like time's not real.
That's like really long. That's long.
Yeah, it's really wrong. So, I mean, I know it's a little bit complicated sometimes getting some stuff on Mondays and not knowing which Friday it's due, or like not knowing when all of your quizzes are due, but that's all in here now. So you have a lot of advance notice. If I change anything, I will let you know. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about, like right before we actually get to our reading for today, is the discussion posts. Most of you did the discussion posts for both Carter and Wright. Not everyone did posts for both. Within the unit, you have to have 2 replies. The unit is 3 more posts. So if you only did replies, that's fine. You've got your 2 replies out of the way. If you didn't do a reply, just keep in mind that you need to do 2 of those at some point. I'm grading all of them out of 10, but I wanted to quickly just go back through in the earning your grade part, discussions. We went through this before, but I think it will be helpful to go through it again, because not everybody stuck to what you're supposed to actually be doing for the posts. And if you don't do all of the things that are required, you're not going to make all 10 points. So let's look first of all at how long each post should be. Each discussion post should be at least 200 words in length, and that goes for replies as well. Even if you're just doing a reply, 200 words is actually like not much. In fact, I kept on plugging I kept like copy and pasting your posts into Pages just to check, because it doesn't look like almost anything. It looks so short, but it's 200 words. So 200 words is really not much at all. What each post should contain, it should contain an answer to the question posed in the title of the post. And that's important to remember, because, where's this? Okay, I can't find where it originally said it, but it's in the discussion checklist. If you are creating an original thread, then your subject line needs to be in the form of a question. that is one of the criteria, and we'll look back at the discussion checklist in just a minute, but most of you did not do that. So if you didn't get all of your points, that's probably one of the reasons why not. Another thing, well, okay, so it's supposed to answer the question. Yes, you're answering your own question, but that's okay. The answer should include some analysis of the text. It works well to make connections between the text and the real world. You must use a quote from the text for each post. The quotes should be introduced or integrated and cited in MLA format. Oh, there's the thing. Number 4 was the title of your original post should be written in the form of a question. Those are all kind of the like technical things that you have to accomplish with your post, like 200 words, title in the form of a question, unless you're doing a reply, and then you don't have a title. Using a quote, making sure that your quote is cited. You got to do all those things to get all of your points. Thomas.
Where was this? Because I didn't know about
This is on D2L. This is under content. Right now I'm looking at the discussion requirements and expectations. I'm also going to look over the discussion checklist before we move on. Another thing is that you definitely want to check back over your post for grammatical and spelling errors. You know, this is not an essay or anything, but it does need to be proofread. It does need to have a point. And I know that sometimes that can be tough because you have to write about each one of these things and maybe you don't have a lot to say, but I just encourage you to dig deep on that one, or even like come up with something out of left field that's related to it and be like, you know, I thought that this person was horrible to write these things and here's why. People don't have to agree with you. You can play devil's advocate. You can like propose bold theories about what the author's intent was, and that's totally fine. But it does need to be more than just summary. Several of you wanted to do a lot of like, I agree with this, I didn't agree with that. And you can do that, but it also needs to be more than just summarizing and like how you felt about it. Can you pose a bigger question? And then your post should also show that you're engaged in purposeful discussion with your classmates, taking the conversation further than I agree or I don't agree. And I did see some good conversation in a couple of the posts, so well done there. Let's look back over the discussion checklist. This will be helpful. Did you write a separate post for each assigned text? Did you write at least 2 reply posts? And again, that goes for the whole unit. So that's going to be 5 posts in all, or 2 of your 5 post replies. Did you meet the assignment deadline? Sure hope so. Did you make sure that each one is 200 words? Did you use a quote from each one and cite it? Is the title of your original post written in the form of a question? Did you make reasonable efforts to edit writing to eliminate distracting errors and weaknesses? And importantly, did your post offer an interesting point about the text, whether others agreed with it or not? And did you support that point with specific details? Julius.
did you use direct quotes in your reply?
Yes. The other thing I was going to show you is we looked through this before because we talked about PQE, and while that's not a thing that I have ever like heard of exactly, like I haven't heard it called the PQE format. We all know how to do this because we've all written essays before and we know how to back up our opinions with evidence. And that's really all this is. What they're asking you to do is offer a statement that answers the essential question, like make your point, that's the P. And then include a quote that provides evidence to support your answer. That's the Q. And then explain how the quote works to support your answer. That's the E. And they had a couple of examples. Y'all might remember looking through some of these that actually are not 200 words, I don't think, but were pretty good examples of what a post should look like. I'll call out a couple of people for good things though, because you can still go back and look at all of these posts and kind of take others for like as an example or as a template for what you might want to do. Kayla, you are consistently doing everything right. Congratulations. I can tell that you looked at everything that you need to do. She's like hitting all of the points. As far as like really good, solid posts, even if you didn't necessarily do everything that was required on them, just the content of the post, Tom has some really good posts. So if you're looking for some examples that your classmates are doing to make sure that y'all are doing the right thing, look for the two of those and look back at their posts because they're pretty good stuff. And I do appreciate the conversation that was going on in a couple of the posts. Even if you didn't necessarily agree with who you were replying to, that's totally okay. And like, nobody take offense if someone doesn't agree with your opinion. It's all supposed to be a conversation, so it's okay and it's not personal. Okay, any questions about that before we move on? Okay. So our new reading today Company of Wolves. And I started talking to you guys about this the other day. Mm-hmm.
Did you say this is the one that was based off like a fairy tale or something?
Yes. It's like this whole collection of short stories this woman did are they're based on fairy tales. I'm trying to find the right thing, sorry. Here we go. They're based on fairy tales, and it's not like she was trying to create new, like more adult versions of the fairy tales, but she was looking at like what kind of dark or disturbing material is already in the fairy tales that I can highlight and kind of create a new story out of. So the one that we're reading is based on Little Red Riding Hood. Invalid file type. How dare you? Did I not press the right thing? My computer. Company of Wolves. Okay, so that's there. Can I just open it on my poopy doop? I have too many things open. Beowulf, I'm done with you. All right, I'll just open this one. Should open in another PDF, another tab. But I just literally scanned these in from my book that I have of all of these. Okay, how many pages is this? 9 pages. We can read together for a little bit. I will say I didn't actually read this story before. I'll read it before tomorrow, even if we don't finish it. But you know, I had it in this book, and I kind of forgot that I ever bought this book. So when I saw that it was from this collection, I was like, oh, that sounds familiar. Oh, that's because I own that book. But I haven't actually read this before. So, I mean, the point was to like get some adult or like darker themes out of it than a fairy tale would normally have. So I can't promise that there's not any like adult content, but this is college class now, so it's not going to be more adult than what we've already read, I'm sure. Okay. Anybody want to read?
Me, I do.
Okay. Tom wants to read.
Yeah. It's loading.
Tom, are you in the Zoom call? It might be easier if you were.
Sure.
Might be easier for everybody to hear you. Trident is the password. Do you need the like the number? 735-3340-0291.
Is it trying lowercase?
Capital I, capital T. There he goes. There he is. I will mute myself so that you can read because sometimes there's weird feedback.
Hello? Hello? There we go. Okay. One beast and only one howls in the woods by night. The wolf is carnivore incarnate, and he's cunning as he is ferocious. Once he's had a taste of flesh, then nothing else will do. At night, the eyes of the wolves shine like candle flames, yellowish, reddish, but that is because the pupils of their eyes flatten on darkness and catch the light from your lantern to flash it back at you. Red for danger. If a wolf's eyes reflect only moonlight, then they gleam a cold and unnatural green, a piercing color. If the benighted traveler spies those luminous, terrible sequins stitched suddenly on the black thickets, then he knows he must run. If fear has not struck him stock still. But those eyes are all you will be able to glimpse of the forest assassins as they cluster invisibly around your smell of meat as you go through the wood unwisely late. They will be like shadows. They will be like wraiths. Gray members of a congregation of nightmare. Hark! His long, wavering howl. An area of fear made audible. The wolf song is the sound of the rendering you will suffer, in itself a murdering. It is winter and cold weather, in this region a mountaintop and forest. There is now nothing for the wolves to eat. Goats and sheep are locked up in the byre. The deer are departed for the remaining pasturage on the southern slopes. Wolves grow lean and famished. There is so little flesh on them that you could count the starveling ribs through their pelts. If they gave you time before they pounced, those slavering jaws, the lolling tongue, the rime of saliva on the grizzled chops of all the the teeming perils of the night and the forest, ghosts, hobgoblins, ogres that grill babies upon gridirons, witches that flatten their captives in cages for cannibal tables. The wolf is worst, for he cannot listen to reason. You are always in danger in the forest, where no people are. Step between the portals of the great pines where the shaggy branches tangle about you, trapping the unwary traveler in nets as if the vegetation itself were in a plot with the wolves who live there, as though the wicked trees go fishing on behalf of their friends. Step between the gateposts of the forest with greatest trepidation and infinite precautions, for if you stray from the path for one instant, the wolves will eat you. They are gray as famine. They are unkind as plague. The gray-eyed children of the sparse villages always carry knives with them when they go out to tend to the little flocks of goats that provide the homesteads with acrid milk and rank, maggoty cheeses. Their knives are half as big as they are. The blades are sharpened daily. But the wolves have ways of arriving at your own hearthside. We try and try, but sometimes we cannot keep them out. There is no winter's night. The cottager does not fear to see a lean, gray, famished snout questing under the door. And there was a woman once bitten in her own kitchen as she was straining the macaroni. Fleer and flee the wolf, for worst of all, the wolf may be more than he seems. There was a hunter once near here that trapped a wolf in a pit. This wolf had massacred the sheep and goats, eaten up a mad old man who used to live by himself in a hut halfway up the mountain and sing to Jesus all day, pounced on a girl looking after the sheep, but she made such a commotion that the men came with rifles and scared him away, and tried to track him into the forest, but he was cunning and easily gave them the slip. So this hunter dug a pit and put a duck in it for bait, all alive. Oh, alive-o?
What?
I don't know. Okay. Where am I? And she covered the pit with straw smeared with wolf dung. Quack, quack, went the duck, and a wolf came slinking out of the forest. A big one, a heavy one. He weighed as much as a grown man, and the straw gave way beneath him. Into the pit he tumbled. The hunter jumped down after him, slit his throat, cut all of his paws for a trophy, and then no wolf lay at all in front of the hunter, but the bloody trunk of a man, headless, footless, dying and dead. A witch from up the valley once turned an entire wedding party into wolves because the groom had settled on another girl. She used to order them to visit her at night from spite, and they would sit and howl around her cottage for her, serenading her with their misery. Not so very long ago, a young woman in our village married a man who vanished clean away on her wedding night. The bed was made with new sheets, and the bride lay down in it. The groom said he was going out to relieve himself. Insisted on it. Is it relive or relieve? Okay, phew. Insisted on it for the sake of decency. And she drew the coverlet up to her chin, and she lay there. And she waited, and she waited, and then she waited again. Surely he's been gone a long time. Until she jumps up in bed and shrieks to hear a howling coming on the wind from the forest. That long-drawn, wavering howl has, for all its fearful resonance, some inherent sadness in it, as if the beasts would love to be less beastly if only they knew how and never cease to mourn their own condition. There is a vast melancholy in the canticles of the wolves, melancholy infinite as the forest, endless as these long nights of winter, and yet that ghastly sadness, that mourning for their own irredeemable appetites, can never move the heart, for not one phrase in it hints at the possibility of redemption. Grace could not come to the wolf from its own despair, only through some external mediator, so that sometimes the beast will look as if he welcomes the knife that he dispatches him. Julius, why don't you take it?
What?
Why don't you take it from here, bud? Take turns.
Wait, where were we?
This is really weird, but I like her language. Like, canticles of the wolves.
I agree.
Like, there's a couple of phrases she said that I like.
I don't know.
You don't like her
It's
language?
so confusing.
This is weird. Like, this is weird.
No, I'm not used to it.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
It's something that I'd like read a paragraph once and then realize that I did not gather anything from it. So I'd read it over and over again.
I feel like a lot of comments.
A lot of comments, yeah.
The young woman's brother. The young woman's brother. The young woman's brother. First, the houses in the exact so be like that. I don't know.
There
I feel
should be a comma there.
yeah. Right.
Weird.
In your name, so the tentacle girl dried her eyes and found herself another husband, not to try, set into a pot to expect the
Can you guys actually hear Julius at all?
No.
Okay.
But this is confusing. herself another husband.
And you're live.
They're saying that she like found a new dude.
Yeah, but like, it says.
Because the other guy, like her first husband or whatever, went outside to piss into a pot and never came back. So she
Yep.
replaces him,
With someone who does, and
who like will pee inside.
okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, all right. Yeah, all right. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I guess that's true. Where was I? I don't know. Indoors. She gave him a pair of Bonnie babies, and all went right as a trivet. Okay. Trivet until one freezing night, the night of the solstice, the hinge of the year when things do not fit together as well as they should. The longest night, her first good man came home again. Wait, what? Oh, he came back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back. Oh man.
He came back. He came back. A, a great thump on the door announced him as she was stirring the soup. Ugh. I don't know. That sounds weird. Was stirring the soup for the father of her. Oh no, she has kids. Stirring the soup for the father of her children, and she knew him the moment she lifted the latch to him, although it was years since she'd worn the latch for him. Can someone else read this? What? For the father of her children, and she knew him the moment she lifted the latch to him, although it was years since she'd worn black for him, and now he was in rags, and his hair hung down his back. Never saw a comb, alive with lice. I didn't like that at all. Oh my God. Here I am again, masseuse, he said. It's masseuse. He said, get me my bowl of cabbage and be quick about it. What a rude man.
I know. He's gone all this time. Now he comes back romantic.
Then her second husband came in with wood for the fire, and when the first one saw she slept with another man, and worse, clapped his red eyes on her little. What does this mean? Clapped his red eyes on her little children who crept into the kitchen to see what all the din was about. He shouted, I wish I were a wolf again to teach this whore a lesson. So a wolf he instantly.
That's pretty rough.
I mean, whatever. So Wolfie instantly became and tore off the eldest boy's left. Okay, tore off the eldest boy's left foot before he was chopped up with the hatchet they used for chopping logs. But when the wolf lay bleeding and gasping its last, the pelt peeled off again, and he was just as he had been years ago, when he ran away from his marriage bed, so that she wept and her second husband beat her. Wait, what? This is so confusing.
What? I don't understand why your second husband beat her.
Yeah, that doesn't make any
Is she
sense.
crying?
When is this set?
Indeterminate time.
A long time ago.
Like Little Red Riding Hood days.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, what? When is that? Like 2000? Okay. They say there's an ointment the devil gives you that turns you into a wolf the minute you rub it on, or that he was born feet first and had a wolf for his father and his torso as a man's, but his legs and genitals are a wolf's, and he was a wolf's heart, and he has a wolf's heart. I hate this writing. 7 years. 7 years is a werewolf's natural span. Wait, what?
Never knew that.
That does not sound right.
That's not a very long time.
Yeah, what? True. Natural span, but if you burn his human clothing, you condemn him to wolfishness for the rest of his life. So old wives hereabouts. What? Is that like whereabouts?
Yeah, but here,
Whatever.
like around these parts.
Sure. Hereabouts, think it. Oh, okay, I see what it means. So, okay. Think it some protection to throw a hat or an apron at the werewolf, as if clothes made the man. Yet, by the eyes, those phosphorescent eyes. Hey, isn't that how they described it in Sherlock?
In what?
Sherlock Holmes? The wolf of the
Oh,
thing of wolf thing? Or maybe he smelt of phosphorus? I don't know. Whatever. Eyes, you know him in all his shapes, the eyes alone unchanged by metamorphosis. Before he can become a wolf, the lycanthrope strips stark and naked. If you spy a naked man among the pines, you must run as if the devil were after you.
I feel like I would anyway, because if he's not a werewolf, he's probably a lunatic.
True.
Like, typically, naked men aren't just hanging out in the pines, you know?
No. What do you want?
Lycanthrope.
Oh, okay.
Me, guys. All right. Where do we pause? It is midwinter. Epic. It is midwinter and the Obbit and okay. And the robin, the friend of man, sits on the handle of the gardener's spade and sings. It is the worst time in all the year for wolves, but this strong-minded child insists she will go off through the wood. She is quite sure the wild beasts cannot harm her. Although well warned, she lays a carving knife in the basket her mother has always packed with cheeses. There is a bottle of harsh liquor distilled from brambles, a batch of flat oat cakes baked on the hearthstone, a pot or two of jam. The flaxen-haired girl will take these delicious gifts to a reclusive grandmother, so old the burdens of her years is crushing her to death. Jesus. Granny lives 2 hours' trudge through the winter woods. The child wraps herself up in her thick shawl, draws it over her head. She steps into her stout wooden shoes. She is dressed and ready, and it is Christmas Eve. The malign door of the solstice still swings upon its hinges, but she's been too much loved ever to feel scared. Children do not stay young long for... I can't even read this. Children do not stay young for long in this savage country. There are no toys for them to play with, so they work hard and grow wise. But this one, so pretty and the youngest of her family, is a little late comer. Had been indulged by her mother and the grandmother who knitted her red shawl, that today, the ominous if brilliant look of blood on snow. Her breasts have just begun to swell. I don't like this. Her hair is like lint, so fair it hardly makes a shadow on her pale forehead. Her cheeks are an emblematic scarlet and white, and she has just started on her woman's bleeding. The clock inside her that will strike, henceforth once a month. She stands and moves within the invisible pentacle of her own virginity. She is an unbroken egg. She is a sealed vessel. Hey, Julius, do you want to take it from here? You want to take it from here, Julius? You heard me?
I'm sorry to say it. It's kind of gross.
It is pretty good. Gross. She has inside her a magic space, the entrance to which is shut tight with a plug of membrane. She is a closed system. She does not know how to shiver. She has her knife and she is afraid of nothing. Her father might forbid her if he were home, but he is away in the forest, gathering wood, and her mother cannot deny her. The forest closed upon her just like a pair of jaws. There's always something to look at in the forest, even in the middle of winter. The huddled mounds of birds, succumbed through the lethargy of the season, heaped on the creaking boughs and too forlorn to sing. The bright frills of the winter fungi on the blotched trunks of the trees, the cuneiform slots of rabbits and deer, the herringbone tracks of the birds, and a hare as lean as a rasher of bacon streaking across the path where The thin sunlight dapples the russet brakes of last year's bracken. When she heard the freezing howl of a distant wolf, her practiced hand sprang to the handle of her knife. She saw no sign of a wolf at all, nor of a naked man, neither. But then she heard a clattering among the brushwood, and there sprang on to the path a fully clothed one, a handsome young one, in the green coat and wide-awake hat of a hunter, laden with carcasses of game birds. She had her hand on her knife at the first rustle of twigs, but he laughed with a flash of white teeth when he saw her and made a comic yet flattering little bow. She'd never seen such a fine fellow before, not among the rustic clowns of her native village. So they went on together, through the thickening light of the afternoon. Soon they were laughing and joking like old friends. When he offered to carry her basket, she gave it to him, although her knife was in it, because he told her his rifle would protect her. As the day darkened, it began to snow again. She felt the first flakes settle on her eyelashes, but there was only half a mile to go, and there would be a fire and hot tea and a welcome, a warm one, surely for the dashing huntsman as well as for herself. The young man had a remarkable object in his pocket. It was a compass. She looked at the little round glass face in the palm of his hand and watched the wavering needle with a vague wonder. He assured her this compass had taken him safely through the wood on his hunting trip because the needle always told him with perfect accuracy where the north was. She did not believe it. She knew that she would never leave the path on the way through the wood, or else she would be lost instantly. He laughed at her again. Gleaming trails of spittle clung to his teeth. Yucky. He said if he plunged off the path into the forest that surrounded them, he could guarantee to arrive at her grandmother's house under a good quarter of an hour before she did, plodding his way through the undergrowth with his compass, while she trudged the long way. Oh, good job. It's Mike. Mike. Michael! Mike, Mom! Michael!
No, you shouldn't. But how obnoxious is this? Michael?
We're reading, Mike.
Me? What?
Maybe it's you.
No, I'm on 98%.
What? You just said 2%.
That must have been Mike's computer. Yeah, we're nearly done reading for today, but maybe through like the middle of the page before grandmother's house. Let's finish that one.
Where are we at? Through Graham. Can't even
We're
see it.
somewhere up at this top paragraph.
No.
I got very distracted by that.
There we go. Okay. With the growth of along the winding path. I don't believe you. Besides, aren't you afraid of the wolves? He only tapped the gleaming butt of his rifle and grinned. Is it a bet? He asked her. Shall we make a game of it? What would you give me if I get to your grandmother's house before you? What would you like? She asked disingenuously. A kiss. Yucca. Icky. Commonplaces of a rustic seduction. She lowered her eyes and blushed. This girl is like 12, by the way. He.
I mean, it didn't kind of imply what stage she was
It very, very accurately implied. Commonplaces of a rustic seduction. She lowered her eyes and blushed. He went through the undergrowth and took her basket with him, but she forgot to be afraid of the beasts. Although now the moon was rising, for she wanted to dawdle on her way to make sure the handsome gentleman would win his wager.
All right, let's stop there for now. Oh, it's terrible. You guys will finish reading this for homework. Boy, that's really awful. We will talk about it tomorrow. We'll do our in-class discussion. The rest of this might be kind of disturbing and upsetting. There were some disturbing and upsetting things already, but if it's going where I think it might be going, it's going to get worse. Kayla, I just saw your I'm uncomfy. So me too, but we're adults, right? So we should be okay. Yep, just Isaiah said he almost puked. Yeah, that was pretty graphic for a minute there. But that's okay. We can all handle it. I don't know how this is going to end, but I don't think it's going to be good for Little Red Riding Hood. That is all. Let me finish sharing my screen. Does anybody have any questions about the due date calendar or your posts or anything before we go?
No, not at all.
No questions. Okay, in that case, I'll see you virtually tomorrow. I'll see you in person tomorrow, but wait till the bell rings. But bye.